Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. I want to start with LSU football. Joe Sloan, LSU offensive coordinator, met with the media yesterday, and there was some sound that we didn't necessarily get to right at the top of yesterday's show, so I wanted to get into that a little bit because Sloan touched on a number of different topics, from the quarterbacks, which we did talk about yesterday, to the offensive line, the running game, some of that stuff that we'll get into at the top of hour number 2. But I wanted to spend the first part of the show today talking about some of the dynamics of the new offense. Obviously, you had Mike Denbrock, a longtime offensive coordinator, at the top of the food chain last year and the year before that. He was in charge. He ran the meetings. He helped with the quarterbacks. He called the plays. This was his offense with some direction from Brian Kelly. When he decides to move on and take the job at Notre Dame, Brian Kelly decided, okay, we're going to give these guys we've got on staff a shot. And by all accounts, everything went great in the bowl game. They kind of had a dress rehearsal for a month to get ready to play one football game. And LSU, without Jaden Daniels and without Malik Neighbors, went out there and played well offensively in the bowl game against Wisconsin. So there's reason to believe that this is going to be a very functional group, but it's still their first spring calling the shots, and they're moving into their first season as full-time overseers of the offense, as, of course, Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton. This is a little bit of a different dynamic. Usually you'd rather have one chef in the kitchen instead of two, and I think in this case, Joe Sloan is the chef and Cortez Hankton's kind of the sous chef. But there are co-offensive coordinators at this point, and Joe Sloan spoke to his relationship with Cortez Hankton.
I think we have an unbelievable offensive staff. And Cortez, everybody sees his development at the receiver position. I think what people don't see is his ability to game plan, his ability to understand how to attack defenses in the passing game. And he was doing a ton of that last year. That's not anything new. And I think then where, just with our new roles and his growth and just tying back in as well more into the run game, perimeter game, whether it be from an RPO standpoint or whatever that might be, and just his involvement there. We have an awesome working relationship.
It's just one of those things. I don't know how much Cortez Hankton did under Mike Denbrock with Joe Sloan. I don't know how that changed entering the Wisconsin game. I don't know how much more he's shouldering this year. I wish I could speak to that, but I can't. I'm not in the meeting rooms. I'm not at practice. I'm not there in film study to figure out who's doing what. But I can tell you that it sounds like there's a lot of mutual respect there, and that Cortez Hankton did have a lot on his plate last year as far as the passing game goes. I have no reason to believe that there's going to be some sort of monster drop-off with Mike Denbrock out of the picture and Cortez Hankton having a little bit more on his plate than just the wide receivers. I think it's going to be just fine. And Joe Sloan spoke to the fact that he actually has known Cortez Hankton for a long time.
I knew Tez when he first got done playing in the UFL, not this UFL, the old UFL. And he came over. I was a GA at South Florida, and he came over, and he and I met. He was trying to start to get into coaching. He and I met. We stayed in touch for a long time. Almost worked together a couple other times, and just our relationship together, I think, is a really good working relationship. We keep each other centered, right, and play off each other really well. But there's a ton of respect there, and I couldn't be more excited about just how things have gone up to this point, but how things have gone over the last couple years with our ability to work together.
So it's not like they've been just tossed into a room and say, hey, figure it out. These guys have been on staff together for 2 years, coming up with a dynamic offense. Now, they weren't at the head of the table where Mike Denbrock and Brian Kelly would sit, and now they are. But this is not a new thing for those two guys. It's a relationship that dates back, obviously, further than I knew. But I think these guys kind of understand. And I don't want to be disrespectful at all of Cortez Hankton's spot here on staff. In fact, I think he's great. But I do believe that Joe Sloan is in a little bit more position of power than Cortez Hankton as far as game planning and certainly play calling go. Cortez Hankton will be heard, I have no doubt, in spring, in summer, in camp, and when you get ready to go play the first game, and then on game day. But ultimately, this is going to come down to Joe Sloan, and I don't think there's going to be much quibbling with that. The other offensive new add to the staff is Slade Nagle, who was brought in to help with special teams and certainly coach the tight ends. And all of a sudden, he's kind of got an embarrassment of riches in that tight end room. But he's another, quote-unquote, cook in the kitchen here on the offensive side. And Joe Sloan spoke to Slade Nagle's impact on this staff.
Really, when we wanted to add a tight end coach in terms of somebody who had call plays before, somebody who understood how we put all the things together from an offensive standpoint, I think what Slade did at Tulane for the last couple years speaks for itself. And I think he brings a ton of value to what we're doing and how we're trying to expand our offense and do some different things and a variety of things I think that match our current personnel and the personnel we'll have in the future, right? That's what we always want to do. But his ability to do that, he's been a football coach a long, long time. I've known him since I first got in the state and been friends a long time. The relationship that we have, the honesty that we can have back and forth, and that he can have amongst our staff, right, with he and Cortez and myself and really everybody in the room. But he brings a huge value from I think a development standpoint of the tight ends and just his coaching ability. But on top of that, his ability to help in terms of formate things and make sure we're attacking people the right way, especially when it comes to the run game.
I'm excited to see what LSU's tight ends do this year. We're going to talk about it in an hour from right now. Because that's a room that was empty when Brian Kelly got here, and now it looks like a real strength of the team. And when you look at what they've lost in terms of pass catching at wide receiver, with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors about to be real rich dudes, there are a lot more receptions to go around, and I think the tight ends are going to gobble some of those up, and we'll talk about that in Slade Nagle's position in hour number 2. But I want to kind of put a bow on this talk about what Joe Sloan had to say about the new staff with the impact that Mike Denbrock leaving is going to have on this group, because he was the elder statesman there. He's been around the block multiple times, calling plays all over the country in all different kinds of conferences across different decades. Like, he's done a lot of coaching offensive football and calling plays. Now, Joe Sloan did it a little bit at Louisiana Tech, and Cortez Hankton seen the highest of the highs at Georgia with the national championship, and it's not like anything's going to completely catch these guys off guard. But the fact of the matter is that Mike Denbrock was there as a security blanket for everybody on the offensive staff over the last 2 years, and he's no longer there. So now the question becomes, how much of this offense remains the same because Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton were still here, and how much of it is really going to be shaken up? Everyone understands you don't have Jaden Daniels and his dynamic running ability at quarterback. You don't have Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, who after 3 weeks last year were just All-Americans. They were awesome. You've got some talent, but you got to bring those guys along. So there are some things that are the same. Great offensive line, capable running backs, veteran quarterback. Even though Garrett Nussbaum hasn't played a lot, he is a veteran at quarterback. But you have a lot of different options. So the question was raised, like, how much of Mike Denbrock's offense is still here?
The nuts and bolts of what we do and the foundation of what we do was set here over the last couple of years, right? When Coach Denbrock came in and we put this offense into effect. And what we've done as an offensive staff, we have 4 of us that are still here. So a lot of that carryover. Plus, we have a lot of guys who played in our offense the last 2 years. So we want to keep the building blocks of who we are. But, right, no matter who's talking to you at this podium, you got to build your offense around the personnel that you have. We're doing that, right? We're growing. And just like we did 2 years ago going into this past year and making an evaluation of where we're at and what we needed to do, we've sitting down as an offensive staff and we're continuing to do the same thing.
I'm curious because y'all know that you don't run to me for your X's and O's. But there's some stuff that's pretty obvious that's going to change. There's not going to be as much quarterback run design. It's just not as big a threat. There's not going to be as much read option. There should be more traditional counters, powers, that type of running. You didn't have to do that with Jaden. You probably do now. I think the tight ends more involved this year than they were last year, just based on personnel. But I'm curious if I'm sitting there in Reliant Stadium and I'm not Reliant. It's Reliant would be, is that it? I think it is. Or Allegiant Stadium? I got nothing. I don't know what the Vegas Stadium is. But when we're in Vegas, Alliant. I can't get there. I feel like Reliant's in Houston, but we'll get there. We'll get there in the break. When I'm there in the stadium, I'm curious if I'll see something and go, oh, yeah, that's something I recognize from last year, or if you look down and it's completely unrecognizable. I mean, Joe Sloan's telling you the nuts and bolts are going to be the same, and I think that's from Brian Kelly. There's going to be a physicality to the run game. There's going to be a priority on getting the ball to the tight end. I think that stuff is non-negotiable with Brian Kelly, but the question is, how drastically different is this going to be? And I think that's something we're all very, very excited to see. So, hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.